Amen. Looks like we're getting in the habit now of like one chapter teachings. At least we're finished with Peter. That worked out. All right, so this is the Afterburn. This is the Afterburn. This is when we take comments and questions about what was just taught. If you're online, Rob will be taking those things down. Please be respectful. This is the time when we get most of the problems. There is leadership in the room. It's Rob and Kurt, and if you would please respect their leadership in the room, that would be very, very helpful and respectful to those that are here. If you're here, raise your hand, and Steve will come around with the mic. All right. And we'll get started. I guess it looks like Rabbi Tom wants to go first.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome.
I don't think I've ever read this book, Second Kifa, before.
Well, it's first Kifa, but yes.
First Kifa. I don't think I ever read that. Of course, I'm being facetious, but I've seen some things in here that you pointed out, like in verse 3, to be born again. I never thought of that as getting a new way of thinking. It makes perfect sense.
Sure.
And then in verse 13, I have a question. It says, having girded up the loins of your mind. Could that be compared to like swaddling an infant to make him feel secure and
to some degree
safe?
Because when you swaddle them, you snuggle them in really tight, and you keep them. But see, you just linked the two verses together, though, that make your point from the first point, which is this born again thing in verse 13 is clearly about the mind, because he then says that it's the mind that we now need to gird up and be careful with. It's a thinking that leads to the action. So we're rebirthing our mind. Okay? Yeah. All right, go ahead.
And in verse 18, futile behavior, simply our past life, these things may seem simple, but I never really thought of them in that exact way. I thought of them I was taking them kind of the words at face value.
Amen. Look,
thank you.
You're welcome. And this is, I taught this from the point of view of the individual, but take this into the global sense. The world eventually realizes its way is futile, and that's why Yeshua shows up when we're about to destroy ourselves, because the futility of it eventually almost destroys everything. So when the individual is doing things in a futile way, eventually the collective futility leads to almost complete destruction. And then Yeshua comes to set that all back in order. All right, who's next? Okay, Shira.
Boy, this is great, Rabbi. Thank you so much. As you were talking about girding up the loins of your mind, because like you, Rabbi Tom, I hadn't really given that a lot of thought, but as you were talking about it, a picture came into my mind, because I've been starting back at the gym, and because I found out that it doesn't work if you don't go. And
it's amazing how that works.
It's truly amazing. But they talk about you've got to develop your core. And so the mind is the core of our behavior. And just like that, a weightlifter will gird up his core to do strenuous lifting, or they will bind things around their middle to present resistance to the core, so it'll support that and you can get more vigorous action. And so I just thought, boy, that kind of works for me, that whole picture of girding up the core of my mind for strenuous action.
Good.
In diligent obedience.
Fantastic.
And fighting the good fight. The other picture I had from the gym is, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm supposed to do bicycling on the recumbent stationary bike for my knee. And it's the most boring thing I ever did in my life. I'm staring out the window at the traffic going by on 25th Street, and, chung. And on the screen, it has a really nice screen, a video screen there, and on the screen, it tells me, what level I'm working at, and I can make the resistance stronger, and then the little thing will go up, and it keep going really slowly, and I gotta do this for half an hour. Well, the other day I discovered that you can pick a workout several workouts where the screen comes to life and you're actually bicycling on a mountain road. And it's so beautiful. You can see where you're going and you're going around a curve, and all of a sudden the workout is nothing because I can kind of, in my mind, I have a picture of where I'm going through this beautiful scenery and I'm headed to this Swiss chalet somewhere, and I just picture it. And I just thought of how you were talking, if we don't have a vision, we're going to die, and to me, more and more, it's about setting my goal and keeping that picture of the incorruptible up ahead.
Amen.
And it makes the race so much easier.
Amen. Look, some of you can completely relate to what Shira just said, and some of you maybe not. And it doesn't matter. What you need to know is she found a life example in her life that she can see as a metaphor. So maybe that picture doesn't work for you. Find your own. Think of it for yourself. What in my life can help me understand what this teaching was about? And so she connected it to this thing at the gym. And some of you going, yeah, whatever. That's her picture, and it makes sense to her. So I just want to throw that out there so you can all say, okay, look for it in your own life. What things am I doing that can give me a sense of, what this is talking about? Okay? All right? By the way, there's another picture I would give. When she was looking at the screen and couldn't see, that's part of our frustration, the unseen. We can't relate to it. We have a problem picturing it. We get bored. We could get weary in so doing. We could sit there going, this is drudgery and trudging through and whatever. Or you can keep reminding yourself that every single time that you do it, it's getting you closer to the goal. Stay focused on the goal, And so, I'm reminded of, I was listening to an interview. Schwarzenegger did a talk one time, Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he was doing his bodybuilding, back when he was competitively bodybuilding, and he said people could not understand how he would spend 4 hours in the gym and doing his hard workouts, but he was always smiling and he wasn't complaining like a lot of guys did. And they asked him, well, how could you? He says, because I already know I have to do so many thousand reps, and every time I do one is one less I have to do. I just got to get them done. So if I get it done now, it means I don't have to do it. I just got to keep going, because to get me to the body I need to win the competition is going to take a certain amount. And so I'm smiling knowing that every one I do is getting me closer to my goal. Okay? And so, but you can be overwhelmed thinking, I have to sit here for half an hour? But you know what? You could look forward to it if you found something that you do special. Like I'm not much of a reader, because reading requires sitting still. Okay? But I have been a big fan of the recumbent bikes when I used to work out in the gym. I know I joke about how I haven't lost any weight and the whole thing. But I actually was a personal trainer. I actually was a manager of a gym. I know what to do in a gym. And what I used to do is I used to love the recumbent bike, and so I used it for reading. And so I brought a book, because it's the most easy bicycle to be on to read, because you're not leaning over, you're not sitting and holding, you're sitting back like it's a very easy position to hold a book and pedal. And so I read, and it was the only time I really could read, because I was actually doing multitasking, which I liked. I was actually doing something while reading, but I had no place to go. So that might be something to do. Just like the distraction of watching yourself go through the beautiful mountain roads. Okay? Plan something to help you enjoy that which you know you need to do that's not enjoyable. And that will make it easier. Okay? Especially if you can make it something that you only do when you do the thing you don't enjoy, then you look forward to it. You see? Let that be a lesson to you parents. Have some things that your children can enjoy that are appropriate for Shabbat that they only get to do on Shabbat. And they might start looking forward to Shabbat. Okay? Find some enjoyable things that are appropriate that they only get to do and that they can't wait for Shabbat because they get to do them. And that might help as well. Okay, who's next? All right, Steve, go ahead.
I kind of had a funny little thought when you talked about girding up our mind. It was because in the military, if we need to guard up our minds in His Word, because if we go commando, we'll leave ourselves hanging without any support from the Father.
Marty, that might need to be edited out. Okay. Those are military terms, right, Steve? Yes, okay. And only because I mentioned Schwarzenegger did you mention Commando, because that was one of his movies. I see. I get it. Whew. Just trying to clean that up a little bit. Okay. Wait a minute. How do I do that? Okay. All right, live stream. Please take us somewhere else.
All right, from S. Hayes, so is 1 Peter 1:3 like a factory reset?
Well, it presents you with an opportunity for a factory reset. In other words, it's not really a factory reset in that you are still you. And all the thoughts that were there before are there. And all of the, so it's you choosing to reset. Factory reset means that you just literally be starting from scratch. All the other stuff would not be there. It'd be like when you reformat your computer. All the other stuff that was there before is gone. Well, this doesn't happen when you're born again. It's all still there. Okay? But you're now recognizing that you're getting to choose to start over with the wisdom, hopefully, that you gained during the time that you were doing dumb things. You might have learned a few things. And now you also have an instruction manual and hopefully a vertical alignment teaching and teacher around everything to give you a better opportunity in terms of making better decisions. All right? So it's not really a factory reset. See, Christianity kind of teaches the idea of a factory reset. Oh, he's going to take out the stony heart and give me a heart of flesh, and he's going to wave his magic wand at me, and I'm going to be totally perfect. No, it doesn't work like that. It would be nice if it did. But then you would no longer be you. And all of the things that you did and were done to you and everything that you experienced is kind of what makes you you. Okay? And that gives us all the different flavors of personalities and people that are out there because of their different experiences. So, no, you'll still be you. But hopefully you'll become a you that's now looks a whole lot like Yeshua and is still you. A Yeshua-like version of you. Okay? Next.
From Sean. It says, what is the milk of the word? Or do you have a teaching on that?
We covered it last week.
Okay, from Olivier and Janet Hoffman. It says, Rabbi 1 verse 4, in regards to the inheritance, I suppose this is referring to the land that we will receive if we are obedient. Is this correct?
Well, the inheritance of Israel coming out of Egypt was the land that was promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The inheritance he's talking about here is the kingdom, which is what the land was a metaphor pointing towards. Also, for the person who I said that we answered the unadulterated milk question last week, if you're waiting for teachings to come out, it will be in part 13 when that comes out, if you're looking for that. Otherwise, go to last week's live stream, and you can just go to the teaching part. But it will be in part 13. Okay, next question.
From Olivia and Janet Hoffman. It says, Rabbi 1 verse 22, love one another fervently with a clean heart, meaning without hypocrisy, falsehood, resentment, envy, jealousy, etc. Is this correct?
Yes. And that's what's explained in chapter 2, verse 1.
From Daniel Woods, can 1 Kepha 1:7 be connected to Daniel 3:16 through 18?
Well, no. I mean, look, it's talking about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and going in the fire and everything else. It does and it doesn't. I mean, look, they were going through the fire to show and prove that their faith was that they would go through and not have even the smell of smoke on them, etc. Your fires, are going to cause potentially some suffering. Theirs didn't. All right? Theirs was a whole different miracle situation. Although it does give you the idea that you will be protected in your fire. So there are some connections we could possibly make, but it's in a lot of ways very different, okay? Peter's talking about the things that you go through in life that are grievous. I mean, you grieve going through them. They are not fun, okay? We get the sense that when those three were sent into the fire, they suffered nothing. They felt nothing. They weren't burned in any way. They didn't even have the smell of smoke on them, nothing, okay? Now, so I would at least take, I guess, the metaphor out that they were protected in it, okay? But not the way you would want to think. You are going to suffer through some of your trials. They will be awkward and painful and not fun at all right? So I wouldn't link them together that way. Next question.
Okay, from Steve, it says, I need more clarification on 1 Peter 2, verse 12. Is the them calling us evildoers, alluding them to people saying we are teaching works?
Say that one more time. Is the them?
It says, is the them calling us evildoers, alluding to people saying we are teaching works?
Well, I mean, look, it's anybody, and I think I covered this last time also, but I'll just cover it again real quick. Anybody that's going to attack you for choosing to be covenanted, set apart unto obedience, and submitted to Torah, okay? So that could look like somebody saying, oh, well, you're trying to do work salvation. Well, that could be one of those people, all right? But the thing is, these are people that are speaking to you, against you, as if you're doing evil, like your works or what you're doing and your efforts are somehow wrong. But he says, no, let them by observing your good works, eventually, in the day of visitation, recognize, oh, they actually were doing the right thing. Okay? Next.
From Angela Dudenhofer, is a life without trials an indication that your belief is where it should be?
I don't know how to answer that. I don't know who has that. Okay? If you have no trials, either you're very highly medicated and living in a well-cushioned bubble somewhere. Life is going to be trials. Now, if you don't think you have trials, it's because you may have learned how to handle them in a way that doesn't feel like trials. Okay, let's kind of clarify it that way. Everybody above ground has trials. Okay? But you can learn to have them not feel like trials. James talks about counting them in a joyful manner. We talked about that a little bit here in Kifa. Count it joy. So if you can look at a trial as a joyful opportunity to have your proving of your faith, etc., happening, well, then you may not even recognize it anymore as a trial. All right? But no, if nothing grievous is happening in your life, that's not evidence that you now arrived. As a matter of fact, I'd get nervous if I didn't have any trials, wondering why is he not testing something? All right? Because all of us have plenty to be tested and worked on. And growth comes through the trial. All right? Not that you want them, but if you're having nothing going on, then you may wonder, hello, did you forget about me? All right? Because those things are things that are necessary part of our growth. Next question.
All right, from Mikkel Guti, says, I've been treated for type 2 diabetes. My father had it, and so did his father. My question is, could I have inherited corruptible seed from them, and depending on whatever changes I make, can change it?
Okay, now look, there's a difference between, and it's not to say that the father can't handle this also, but there's a difference between physically, genetically passed on traits, like a disposition to cancer or, diabetes or something, right? You have a inherited, physically, genetically inherited thing. There's a difference between that and a mindset, okay? Because you can't change the fact that you inherited something genetically. Now, the father can miraculously handle it and wipe it out or whatever he wants to do, but that's not something you can do. Like, there's no, Torah that you can keep that automatically gets rid of diabetes, okay? Now, he may choose to wipe it out if you're obedient and wants to bless you in some way, but there's nothing like there's a formula for that. However, all of the other dumb things that you may have inherited, like mindsets and behaviors and personality and character flaws, because we tend to imitate. That's generational cursing, is the imitation of the foolish generational behaviors. All right? So when you say, well, my father was an alcoholic and his father was an alcoholic and his father was an alcoholic, well, some of that may be physical in terms of a weakness if you started on, but also it's a mental and emotional choice to even go down that path. Okay? Same thing with physical abuse, same thing with sexual abuse, same thing with same thing with laziness or, whatever. There are mindsets that are choices that we learn through imitation. And we practice and we rehearse generationally through imitation. That's the stuff we're talking about here. Okay? So we're not talking about that which is physically passed down. When they do a screening on someone and say, does anybody in your family, hereditarily have, these health issues, then you are more likely to have it as well because it's passed down physically and no choice of yours. All right? Now, there are some health things that are choices that are not inherited, like just maybe bad eating habits. Maybe you were raised in a place that ate poorly, and then you have bad, and so you end up with some of the health issues that are because of that. But that's kind of stuff you can recognize and make changes to. Okay, the genetic stuff, not so much. All right.
From Olivier and Janet Hoffman, it says, Rabbi 1, verse 14, does the lust and ignorance include addiction to food? Verse 15, when it says all behavior, it means we need to constantly be aware of everything we do, speak, and think. Is this right?
Yes to both. I think I covered the food one right before you asked the question. So actually, you probably asked the question before I ever got to it because you probably typed it in a while ago, but still. Look, it's talking about you taking ownership and responsibility for all the things that you do because of the way you think. Those things then lead into actions that are not beneficial to you going to where you want to get. Okay, that includes our eating because after all, you have to deal with health issues in this life until we are changed to an incorruptible body that doesn't get sick. And so if you are going to do things that negatively affect your health, then those are things that are done because of a lust or a desire. We desire those foods. They're comfort foods. They make us change our emotional state. The things it's funny how the things that are worse for you taste, at least they're attractive, they taste the best, and they make you feel, at least initially, great. Okay? There was a guy it's a really good movie to watch. It was a thing called Super Size Me. Okay? A guy wanted to show what could happen if you did nothing but eat McDonald's every day for 30 days. All his meals. Every meal for 30 days. And what he found was, while it made him ultimately very unhealthy, okay, every time he went in when he wasn't feeling good, eating it made him feel good. The carbs, the grease, the sugar, whatever made him feel good. And so we're attracted to stuff that when we do it, it makes us feel good, even though it was hurting him. Okay? And it took him a good little detox period of time afterwards to get himself back into a healthy place because it was adversely affecting his health. But it changed his state. He felt good emotionally, not physically. It made him happy. He felt good. That's why people go and have so many billions served. Because people like it, because it makes them feel good. All right, we call it comfort food. All right, next question.
From Tony Forer, says, Rabbi, am I correct in understanding that born again is happening over and over again until we are finally and literally born again into what he is?
I would agree. And that's ultimately what Yeshua was talking to Nicodemus about. He wasn't talking about this level. Okay. Next.
Okay, this is the last one. This is Mike and Pam Decker. Says, so born again is being brought into the light. Question.
Well, born again, I wouldn't maybe call it that far. Born again brings you to where you can see the difference between the light and the darkness so that you can start to choose the light. Okay? So in the rebirthing and in opening your eyes and opening your ears, you can see the contrast between what is light and what is darkness. And that's why he says that you were called out of the darkness. So you weren't just brought into light, but you were called out. In other words, you were shown the difference so that you can make a choice. Remember, Moses lays it out this way. He says, I lay before you life and death. Choose life. Okay, choose life. All right, that's it? We're good. All right, good. Okay. Yes, sir. Mr.
I just
Wayne.
got one question.
Sure.
Just when I was going over this, in Ephesians, when it's talking about putting on the armor of Elohim, And because we not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against authorities, against the world rulers of the darkness of the age. And then does that have to deal with the arrows and the fire of the trials? Is that what that's talking about?
I'm sure that to some degree that is, and it's strange that you would be focused on Ephesians 6, considering you and the rest of the teachers for Passover are working on the armor. So no, that's...
Well, I just got it out of the teaching that we just did today when we were talking about the fire and the trials.
Yeah,
And
I mean, look, in order to handle the trials, you need to be armored up. Absolutely, the armor is all about dealing with, and you're supposed to gird, in that case, you're supposed to gird your waist with truth, okay? And so there's another idea of the girding, but yes, all these things are there to help you through the whole process.
So all the principalities and everything like that, that's just thrown at you for a trial in your life.
It's all there to be part of the testing, improving. It's all pop quizzes, okay? All right, excellent.
You can